Welcome to episode number 34 of Highlighting the Best of Youth Sports, brought to you by Numbers Don't Lie Productions. This interview was with Nicole Baran, a sports blogger with a special perspective on football and the college recruitment process for young athletes and their families. This episode is packed full of great insights and a look into how the recruiting process worked for one of the top collegiate wide receivers in the nation, University of Maryland's Jeshaun Jones. Just a few quick things before we get into this episode. Thank you so much to everyone that has subscribed, left a review, and shared the show. We recently passed 2,000 downloads and couldn't have done it without you. Keep sharing and giving us feedback. We love what we're hearing. If you'd like to learn more about the services offered by Numbers Don't Lie and how to highlight your athlete's special skills, be sure to visit numbersdon'tlie.biz. Highlighting the best of youth sports is proudly presented by our national partner, ID Life. ID Life is a health and wellness company that is changing the game with its customized nutrition. Everyone has unique nutritional needs, and ID Life's mission is to offer the highest quality products and programs to help you lead a healthier life. What separates ID Life from other nutritional brands is its 100% free ID assessment that is tailored to your unique health needs. The answers you provide generate a confidential report with scientifically backed supplement recommendations, creating your own customized vitamin program. Just visit the website at numbersdon'tlie.idlife.com. Take the free assessment today. Now let's get into this episode. Welcome to Highlighting the Best of Youth Sports, where we bring you insights from top athletes, their sports journey, and those positively impacting the youth sports community. If you're ready like we are, let's go. Welcome, everyone. Today we have Nicole Baran, a sports blogger with a special perspective on football and the recruitment process for young athletes and families. Nicole runs the online blog Single Mom's Guide to D1 Football Recruiting, and we're excited to have her. Nicole, welcome to Highlighting the Best of Youth Sports. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Nicole, let's start with you taking a few moments to tell us a little bit about yourself, your sports background, if any, personally, and then obviously as a mom, and how the Single Mom's Guide to D1 Football Recruiting came to be.
Well, I was a three-sport athlete in high school as well, and then I coached in my adult years. I've coached volleyball, basketball, track. I've coached a lot of sports, so that's my background as far as sports goes. I mean, I wasn't that great of a volleyball player, that great of a basketball player. I'm only 5'5", so I didn't go any further than college. But I've played a lot of sports. I've coached a lot of sports, so that's my background.
Okay, very good. And tell us how the blog came to be.
So the blog kind of came to be because as we were going through the recruiting process and I was talking to my friends and coworkers about it, everybody kept saying, you really should write a book about this because of the amount of information that I just had for free to give away, and everybody said, you should really write this down. And so once my son left for college, it was sort of cathartic for me to get it all out and use it to help people.
And how's the blog doing now? Are you still keeping up with it? Has it turned into anything else at this point?
Well, I had some interest in some speaking engagements. I've had interest in publishing for the book. I just don't know if I have enough content yet, so I'm still working with that. Hoping to transition into maybe Single Mom's Guide to the NFL Draft. Hopefully one day.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be a nice conclusion to that book.
That's what we hope for.
So tell us about your son, Jeshaun, and his sports background, a little bit about, him, youth and high school sports, and then where he's at now in college with his career.
So Jeshaun's played sports since he was 4 or 5 years old. He started with flag football and played basketball and baseball his whole life, a little soccer when he was in middle school. He's just been a really athletic kid from day one, and everybody knew it. So it was on me to just keep him busy and keep him involved. And so he's played sports all the way up through high school. In high school, he was a 4-year varsity letterman on the football team and went through 4 head coaches in 4 years. So he had a very interesting high school career and a start at it, so, which helped transition into college with, the coaching changes and whatnot, but also played basketball and baseball and just a real well-rounded athlete, and kind of had his pick of, which sport he wanted to play at the next level.
And so which school did he choose eventually, and where's he at now? What year in college is he at?
So he had 38 D1 offers coming out of high school, and we narrowed that down to 11 and then narrowed that down to 4, which the top 4 were Pittsburgh, Maryland, Iowa State, and I'm not going to be able to remember the 4th one. He ended up at Maryland and started as a true freshman at Maryland. He early enrolled, which was a huge factor in him being able to play as a true freshman, which means they enroll in January. So he was a semester ahead of everyone, got to go to spring ball, and was able to play as a true freshman.
Okay. And what year is he at now? Is he a sophomore?
He is a sophomore athletically, and he graduates in December academically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he still has 3 years of eligibility, and that's the beauty of the early enrollment. See, because when you get a semester jump on everyone, and football players go year round, so you're ahead of the game.
So for those that may not know, as he heads in, let's say he graduates at the end of his sophomore year, what type of classes and how many are they mandated to take those next 3 years of eligibility that he would have?
So he has to be full-time, but he will be in grad school at that point. So full-time at the grad school level is not as many classes as undergrad. So I think he only has to take 2 to stay full-time, and then hopefully he'll end up getting a master's paid for as well.
Excellent. Nicole, as a mom, what is the best memory you have of your son playing on the football field?
Oh, there's so many. I could go on and on. Probably there's the top one would obviously be his freshman debut against Texas at the Washington Redskins field. He scored 3 touchdowns his first game as a true freshman on his first 3 touches. Never been done before. The only time it happened was Marcus Mariota did it, but not as a true freshman and not on his first 3 touches. So that was huge. And after he scored his first touchdown of his first ever college game, he looked to me in the stands to point, and my heart could have exploded right then. That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. What a moment. Now,
Yeah.
What position does he play?
He's a receiver.
He's a receiver. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the impact that you think youth sports participation had on Jeshaun?
Well, I think with all kids, when they play sports at a young level, it teaches them adversity, it teaches them competition, it teaches them teamwork, and also the diversity element that I think a lot of people don't take into consideration. There's a lot of kids that wouldn't necessarily be friends or even talk to each other if they weren't on the same team together. So it forces you to interact and team build with people that you wouldn't normally, that probably don't communicate like you do. And I think it's a huge skill that you use throughout your whole life.
Yeah, and we've talked to a lot of people, and especially now in today's society, the divisiveness that's going on, and sports for me has always been able to transcend and kind of mirror what's happening in life, and that's definitely a huge thing that you mentioned is the diversity, and you get to come together with people of all kinds of backgrounds, and you guys are all working towards a common goal. You have to trust each other, and you learn to grow, for lack of a better word, like a family, and that's
Right.
really important. And thank you for mentioning that.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of adversity, I want to touch on a couple things, because I know in Jeshaun's, it may have been his freshman year, but he went through a major injury as well, correct?
It was the first day of fall camp of would have been his sophomore year.
Okay.
He tore his ACL first day in pads at practice and was out for the entire year. So he just came back 100%. This month he's been 1 year. So he's back 100% medically. Now it's more of a mental thing, learning to trust that knee again. So that's what we're working on now, which is really hard with the stop and go of the college season right now. And every time someone tests positive, they have to stop everything. So it's real hard to get in a rhythm. It's real hard to build on anything because, they have to shut down for a week, sometimes 2 weeks. So that really takes you out of your rhythm.
Yeah, and I was reading your blog, and you touched on something very important. With an injury of that type, there are so many emotions that are going through. Not only you as a mom, but I know you had to stay strong for him.
Mhm.
But as an
Yeah.
athlete and being a high performing athlete, he went through so many different emotions and downs, and what's the future going to be like now? And one thing that really stood out to me in what you wrote was for both you and for him to reach out and seek the sports psychologist in the
Mhm.
program and really talk to
Mhm.
them. And that was very insightful. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I think it's huge, and that was one of the questions that I asked during recruiting. Was I wanted to meet the sports psychologist on staff because these things happen, and as much as you don't want to think about it, they do. And had it not been a horrible injury, there's a lot of emotional and mental things that these guys go through, and the masculine stigma, they don't necessarily want to reach out for help, and we need to normalize seeking mental health help, or just sounding board, someone to talk to. A lot of these kids are really far away from home, dealing with a lot of things. Some have never had this type of head coach, and so that's a whole new thing to deal with. They're far from their families when they've had family support. So I think the sports psychologist is a huge element of the coaching staff, and I think it kind of gets overlooked or kind of pushed to the wayside because people think, oh, we won't need that, I'm just going to be a superstar and I'm going to graduate college and have no issues. But I think it's a huge asset on your coaching staff.
So I want to kind of stay with the adversity theme and talk a little bit about COVID-19, and you touched on it a little bit. So where is Jeshaun's program right now? Are they playing, or is their league postponed? And how is his program handling it? And how is Jeshaun handling it?
They're postponed right now with the intention to start in spring, and that was what they had talked about. But there's supposed to be a vote actually today, shooting for an mid-October start date. So that kind of compacts everything all of a sudden. You go full go after stop and go. So right now they just started back practice on, I want to say Friday, because they were in a lockdown for COVID issues as well. They tested all the athletes, not just football players, all the athletes, and they had a certain amount of cases. So they had to shut everything down because some of the facility equipment is shared with other sports. So it's been super frustrating, very frustrating. And the fear of the unknown, you don't know what's going to happen. And you don't know, they got to call the day, like that morning, hey, we got practice today. And that's really what it's been. It's been, you can't plan anything. You can't get comfortable because you never know what's going to happen. Or you get a call that morning that says, hey, everything's shut down, don't come to the facility. So it's been crazy. It's been very much an adjustment period, especially coming off a year off with that rehabbing the injury. So you come off of that and you're really pumped and ready to get back. And then this happens, which, puts you in slow motion. So it brings up a lot of interesting points. Like, this really makes you decide, is this something that I really want to do? What happens if football all goes away? Because, the world's pretty much changed as we know it. Things are going to be different. And so this just really makes you start to think about a lot of things. And him and I have had a lot of talks of him just kind of getting it all out, what's in his head. He's frustrated, he's confused, he's scared, he's worried, all these things. And I'm kind of the sounding board to make sure that he doesn't make any emotional decisions, and just kind of hear him out and kind of focus things for him and put in a perspective for him. But it's been tough for everyone.
My son, I mean, everyone's going through it, not only in sports in their lives, but, staying on sports. My son, he's starting his freshman year of sports and football and baseball. And now those two seasons are pretty much meshed together. So he's playing football. It's been shut down. One thing that not a lot of people think about, I'm certain they're thinking about it at Jeshaun's level, is game speed is completely different than practice speed. And especially someone with an injury like Jeshaun's, they need to make sure that they're easing their way back into that gameplay, because major injuries can occur whether or not they've had them in the past. And that's something I think we're going to see in sports all around, especially at younger and amateur ages, when they don't have the professional coaching staffs or strength and training staffs. Once they go and they're going full speed out there on the field, they need to make sure their body's conditioned for that.
And that was a huge thing when things got shut down initially. He came home for a while, and he was here for probably a solid month or so in Florida. We live in Florida. So he was home in Florida for probably a solid month, and he was working out with Anthony Chimbarello here, who runs a local gym, and getting rehab from physio, right? Just trying to stay in shape, because we never knew what was going to happen. So he's just trying to stay in shape and trying to stay ready. And it's just been a process.
Yeah. Nicole, from your experience, what are the three biggest things parents must understand as they're entertaining or entering the college sports recruitment process?
There's a lot, but if I could say top three, the hugest thing you need to know is, and people say this, but I don't think you understand it until it's your kid. College football 100% is a business. It's a business. Your child is a product. And if you haven't seen that yet with the fact that they're letting these kids go back and play with all this sickness going on, you know what I mean? That further tells you that this is a business. This is a money-making organization. Your child's job is to produce and make them money. And in some cases, I mean, even with the recruiting aspect, and if I don't want to go too far off on a tangent, but if they get to, even in the recruiting aspect, your child is a product in the sense that these coaches get kickbacks depending on how big of a recruit he is, you know, and their job security is depending on how big of a recruit he is and if he produces once he gets there. And you got to understand they're projecting this probably a year or two out because he's probably not going to play as a true freshman. Where football is concerned, it's very rare for kids to come in and play as a true freshman. And that's the importance of enrolling early. But I mean, they're looking for probably 2 years out, is this kid going to produce so that I can keep my job? You understand? So, and you understand that your child is a product and this is a business and you take all the emotion out of it, you're better off because then you can really look at it from outside of the box, you know, instead of being too close to it. So that's number one. Number two, the coaching staff may not be the coaching staff. So that's the thing. Don't fall in love with the coaches. They're probably not going to be there. And if they are, they're not going to be there long. So you better go someplace where you like the area. They have a program that you can study and that you're going to fit into their scheme, whether it's offensive or defensive. You see where you fit into that scheme. That's really important. And thirdly, what was the third one? There was a business. There was the coaching staff. There was recruiting. Once recruiting is over, they don't care about you. And I think that's the biggest shock for people. A lot of kids fall in love with recruiting not so much that they don't realize that recruiting is not real life. So they're courting you, they're praising you, they're contacting you constantly, they're contacting your parents, they're coming for visits, all these great things. You're going there for visits, you're being wined and dined, and the minute you commit, it's over with. You are on, now they have you, they don't have to treat you nicely, they don't have to call your mom, they don't have to praise you. You are there to do a job, and if you don't produce, there's 10 behind you that would love your spot.
Now, that can be a very sobering reality, you know, that you're a product and that the recruitment, the love for you is over. Is there a way that you can get past that and grow and build the relationship with the coach after you're in the program? And what has Jeshaun done with that? You have to shift your way of thinking. Okay. So once you know, because obviously these guys that are playing at the college level, their goal is to play in the NFL. So now you have clocked in, you are in business mode. This is a job and I am going to use this school as much as I can because they are going to use your kid up, every ounce of them. I mean, torn ACLs and all, they are going to use him up. So you need to use that school, I mean, as much as you can, whether education-wise, networking-wise, you're making relationships with coaches, you're making relationships with every person you can because you're building your resume. God forbid football goes out the window. You are building your resume as a person so that you can hit these people up, especially during, and that goes for those coaches you met during recruiting as well. You never want to burn a bridge because you may need to reach out. You may need a job. You may need a reference. You may need a place to go, you know, when the coaching staff changes. Because that's another thing. If that coaching staff didn't recruit you and the coaching staff changes, they don't really care if you stay or not. They actually would rather you left because they want to bring in their own guys. So you want to make sure that you have a good relationship with all the coaches that you met along the way because you may need a place to go. And there's one thing I'm sure our audience is going to notice here is, you know, I mentioned that's a very sobering fact. It's to the point. It's a business. It's cutthroat. And this is coming from Mama Bear. This is coming from mom and her son being part of the process and you wanting what's best for your son, not tomorrow, but in the years to come. And we can appreciate that so much. And I think our audience can see that and can sense that in your tone and your passion about it. That's what led to the blog, actually. Yep. Share that information with as many moms as possible because I feel like we get taken advantage of, you know, especially, and it's like our greatest gift, our sons.
I'm here to be the voice of reason.
Yep. And everyone needs that advocate. And, I didn't really touch on this earlier, but I was raised by a single grandmother. And one thing that really made us want to reach out to you, I think it was last year with the blog, is just the passion you have and how hard it is and tough it is for a mother. But let alone a single mother. I see what my wife goes through. I mean, we have a nuclear family here, and it's being raised by a single grandmother. I know what you go through and the sacrifices that you make, and I can appreciate that. And you're doing so much good by spreading this information, because it helps not only just single parents, but parents in general. And, me as a father, and it helps me. But I appreciate that, and I wanted to make sure I didn't let this episode go without mentioning that and how much we admire you.
Thanks.
You touched on this a little bit earlier, but can you, for our audience, break down and help us understand a little bit more about what mid-year enrollment is and what players and families need to know about that?
Yeah, mid-year enrollment is the single most important factor that will decide if you play as a true freshman. And every kid in high school thinks they're going to play right away, and they're going to go out there and be the superstar, here's the thing about that. Great, be motivated, be confident, but you have to understand you're going from 18-year-old kid where you were the best person on your team, probably had a mediocre weight program, probably had a mediocre, learning schemes and whatnot, and you're about to walk into a program where there's grown men. I mean, up to age 25. I mean, when Jeshaun got to Maryland, there was a 30-year-old kicker on his team. Like, you're walking into a team with grown men who are fighting to get into the NFL. And you have to understand that when you come on that team, if you're not helping them get there, you're not going to play. And that's the thing. And there's guys that are hungry, that need film for the draft, that need film for all kinds of things. And you think you're going to walk in at 18 years old and beat that guy out? He's probably got a couple kids at home. Like, you have to be logical about this. So enrolling early sets you a semester ahead of everyone academically, which is great because you're not there when all the true freshmen show up in the summer when it's crazy and everybody's lost. Like, you have a chance to get things figured out, learn campus early, get your classes set, get into spring practice. So now you've learned the offense or defense, whichever you play, you've learned schemes, you understand, you've met all the coaching staff, you're already that far ahead of everyone else. So that's the first thing. To set yourself in a position to enroll early, you need to start thinking about this junior, senior year of high school, because there's some classes that you're going to have to double up so that you're ready to leave in December. Now, bear in mind that you didn't fail anything. You have to have not failed anything. If you did, you need to be junior, senior, you're making those up quickly in the summer, however you got to do it online. But what happens is your senior year, you'll have to take English 3 and English 4 probably at the same time, and you'll have to take your economics class online. And that's the way to get it done. Because if you've passed everything, you should only have those 2 classes left your senior year. And, one of the coaches we met during recruiting, Kevin Beard, who is at Toledo now, was the best advice he ever gave. Second half of your senior year is the biggest waste of your time, because you're the best person on your team. There's nobody pushing you. You probably only have 2 classes, so you're not even on campus that often. You got plenty of time to hang out and get in trouble. Why wouldn't you want to go get on campus and start getting better? You know what I mean? It just makes sense. And you're getting that many classes for free because now, you're on scholarship a semester earlier. So more classes for free. I mean, can't beat it.
Right. And that's great advice, great information that not a lot of people think about. And, it's something that's important, especially if it's focusing on football, because the way the calendar year falls.
And with the early signing period now, that changed the game because people sign in December now.
Yeah. Nicole, what was the most surprising thing you learned as you and Jeshaun went through the recruiting process? Probably the fact that it was a business. That was the most sobering fact of it all. It's 100% a business. They really don't care. And that's the thing. As soon as you can separate the emotion from it and have that business mindset, you're better off. Because during the recruiting, they are schmoozing you and telling you everything you want to hear. When you go on visits, they're whining and dining. I mean, there's food at every stop. They're showing you every part of the city and the campus, and it's a whirlwind. And if you can keep your head on straight and remember, these people don't care. I'm never going to hear from them again. They just want my kid. And, think clearly, you're going to be better off. That's the most surprising part. Yeah, I think in life in general, the more you're aware of what's going on around you, the better, the more you can address challenges as they come up. If you had an opportunity to go through the process again, what's the one thing you would do differently?
I wouldn't have got as emotionally involved as I did, and I probably would have pushed a little harder for the things I felt strongly about because I wanted to make sure the process was Jeshaun's because he worked for this. I'm just there to be a buffer and kind of, bump him in the right direction. So I really wanted him to make his own decision. I wanted him to handle all the calls with the coaches and managing all of that. I wanted him, this was a maturation process for him, a coming of age. So I really wanted him to make his own decisions. And so I think I wish I would have pushed a little harder with some of the things I felt more strongly about, but I mean, obviously it all worked out perfect, but definitely that and like separating the emotion from it, because there was points where we felt bad telling coaches no and felt bad telling them we weren't interested. And I'm now looking back, I'm like, how silly was that? Like, they don't care. They got 10 more people to call when they get off the phone,
Right.
Yeah, you learn.
Nicole, the name of our company is Numbers Don't Lie. It's a common phrase in sports, and I'm sure you've heard it before. Can you tell us what the phrase numbers don't lie means to you?
Well, I mean, in the literal sense, they don't. Like it comes down to numbers. And if a kid's producing numbers, it's going to show, he's going to be found. And that's the biggest thing. Like, yeah, numbers don't lie.
Another popular phrase is trust the process. What does that phrase mean to you?
Well, first of all, it's all a process. And when you start to look at everything as a process, you understand. And if you can be a witness to it and learn from it, like a lot of the kids say they turn their L's into lessons, 100%. It's not a loss if you learn from it. And, everything is a process and you have to trust it because it's put there to teach you something. I believe a lot and, everything is perfect and everything happens for a reason. And we had to really stand on that when my son was out for a year and, he's never had a major injury. Now he's on crutches and he's asking people for help and kids are carrying his lunch tray and things like that. Like, trust the process. Maybe this is teaching you to be humble. Maybe this is teaching you to be, teaching you humility or whatever that is. We're going to trust it and learn from it. That's all you can do.
Nicole, is Jeshaun on social media?
He is.
Okay. Where can our audience follow him?
He's Jeshaun J on Instagram. He's Jeshaun Jones 06 on Twitter. Those are his two social medias.
Okay. And we'll put all that in the show notes as well. We want we want everyone to be following him as you as well. So speaking of social media, Nicole, how can young athletes best utilize social media in the sports journey?
Well, social media is your brand, or is how you're going to convey your brand. You are your brand, and what you do on social media conveys it to the public and to the world. So when you start looking at yourself like a business product and, part of a business, and you start treating yourself like a brand, you start to realize like everything you put out is building a profile of who you are. So if you want to market yourself to schools or at some point the NFL, which by the way, they go back and search all your social medias for everything, like with a fine tooth comb. So if you want to, the best thing to do is start cleaning that up now and keep that in mind with everything you post and share everything you do, because that's your brand.
What role did highlight and skills videos play for you and Jeshaun in the recruitment process? And I know he's a highly talented and a top touted athlete. So a lot of that stuff, it'll come to you and right. You're getting more exposure. But for those that may not have those opportunities, what role do you think highlight videos can help them out?
I mean, that's your primary recruiting tool. And things like Huddle, where you're making your highlight tapes, things like Numbers Don't Lie, making highlight tapes, those things are going to be huge in your recruiting because that's the only thing you have to showcase yourself. And you want to pump that out on your social medias. You want to email that to all your coaches. You want to send it to everyone you can, because the more likes and more shares, the more clout you're getting on your name, especially like with the 7-on-7 teams. There's always reporters that are there at the 7-on-7s, like for 24/7 sports and things like that. They're going to take highlights from, things. So you have a big play to 7-on-7 match that goes on their site that blows up. So, I mean, it's huge. I think the highlight tapes, the highlight recordings and videos and stuff is huge in the recruiting process because, and in some cases, coaches can't get down to see you. Like maybe it's a school in California and you're in Florida and this is the only way that they're going to be able to get a look at you. And I think it's huge.
Yeah, and one thing we're finding that to be a lot more prevalent today with COVID-19, and now even more coaches can't get out. But what we also like to tell families that we're working with and athletes is, your highlight video or your recruitment video is not why a coach is going to recruit you or to sign you. You have to put in the work, but it's just another tool in your toolbox to maybe get your foot in the door, to at least gain a little bit of attention, and then they'll follow through with more in-depth looking at you and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
Okay, Nicole, we're down to our final rapid fire question, so let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. What's the best piece of leadership advice you've received?
The best piece of leadership advice I received, and I can't remember who said it to me, but it's a simple quote. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when you show someone that you care about them, they will do anything you ask. They will run through a wall if they know you care.
If you can choose someone other than Jeshaun, who's your favorite athlete and why?
I don't have a favorite athlete. I love an underdog. So like I'm super happy for Joe Burrow, who's having a breakout game right now as we speak. I'm super happy for Lamar Jackson, who was, nobody wanted him and his mom didn't even have an agent, things like that. Like I love a good underdog story. Yeah,
we do as well. I love that answer. That's a great answer. And we know obviously Jeshaun is your favorite athlete. Who's your favorite coach or a leader in general and why?
Well, a leader in general, I probably can't think of one specifically. I love all the greats, you know what I mean? Like a couple cool head coaches we met during the recruiting process. Lovie Smith was really cool. Earth, like big grandpa teddy bear type guy. And I thought it was really cool. Butch Jones, a lot of people don't like. I thought he was a heck of a coach when he was at Tennessee. I like the greats, obviously, but if you're going to be a good leader, everyone's not going to like you. So, that's part of it.
Right. Okay, Nicole, where can people follow you and find out more about the blog and everything you're doing and hopefully your future book?
Single Mom's Guide to D1FootballRecruiting.com is where you can find the blog. Single Mom's Guide to D1 Football Recruiting on Facebook, and at Single Mom's Guide to D1 Football Recruiting on Instagram.
Okay, very good. I want to thank you again for being on the podcast, and we'll get this out soon. But again, thank you very much. I'm glad to have you. We're grateful that you participated and did a blog for us earlier. And hopefully in the near future, maybe we can get Jeshaun on the podcast as well.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nicole.
All right. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Highlighting the Best of Youth Sports. Be sure and subscribe, and please help us reach more people by leaving a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform of choice. If you or someone you know are interested in learning more about Numbers Don't Lie and what we do, what programs and services we offer for athletes, and how to get your athlete involved, be sure to visit numbersdon'tlie.biz. Until our next episode, go out and win the day and never miss your opportunity to be great. Thanks for listening to Highlighting the Best of Youth Sports.